Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 520, recorded the weekend of June 2nd. I'm your host, Patrick. I'm going to do the news solo again this week because there's really just not any news. Unfortunately, we're in a little bit of a dead space time regarding the news. Hopefully we'll get some soon. But in any case, we like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can watch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or from our website at DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by Cybears, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be sometime next weekend. You can stay updated by following us on our social media pages or our website, DDOCast.com, with our calendar. If we don't get any news again this week, it'll probably just be a recorded news section, really just a glorified introduction to the discussion topic, like today and last week. In any case, let's talk about, what little game news there is, which is really just to say that the bonus days this weekend were 30% crafting XP boost. Autos boxes are on sale through this weekend as well, through June 3rd. The sale for the week through June 7th is Adventure and Advance, which means you can get 20% off of select adventure packs and Quest XP elixirs. You can also get a stack of 5 jumping plus 20 codes with the coupon code JUMPING through June 7th. So there you go. Other stuff around the community. You can get the latest episode of DDO Players News that came out this weekend. Also, the Munchkin Summer Games of 2018 started this weekend. That's on Kyber. It's basically if bring any halfling or gnome character, and they run a bunch of raids. They have a schedule this year, but that started. DDOCast Splat is off this week and the following week, and then we should be back in June. Was that 19th, something like that? We should be back again. And yeah, like I said, there's no news. That's it. Mission accomplished. So what's going to happen here is kind of round out the show here. But we do have our discussion topic. We are continuing our leveling series. We're almost done with it. We are starting level 30 plus this week with part 1 of 3. So we really hope you enjoy that. In any case, thanks for listening to the show. Thanks to all the people who helped me put this show together. And thanks to Standing Stone Games and Wizards of the Coast for making DDO happen. Although, please, Standing Stone Games, a little bit more news would be fantastic so that I can maybe stretch some of this stuff out a little bit. And also to Cybears for hosting the podcast. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website, DDOcast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. If you have a DDO-themed webpage or a Twitch DDO and you'd like to be featured on our website, send me an email at DDOcast.com. And you can also hit us up at DDOcast.com for our show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be part of the show or have a comment on this episode or have a question you'd like to hear us answer, maybe there's a topic you'd like to hear us discuss. I try to do what we're doing now is we're giving a lot more time to our discussions and kind of breaking them out over several weeks, so we can really dive into stuff deeper. So always on the lookout for new topics. What we want to be talking about, what you guys want us to be talking about. That's kind of the whole idea here. Also, if you just want to say hi, any of those things, leave a comment. Email us at DDOcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media at DDOcast on Twitter. It's the best place. And you can follow us there for the latest cast updates. Our closing tip for the week comes from Helena on Kyber. Potions are your friend. Stock up on them. A great pro tip there. So again, stay tuned. It'll be part 1 of Leveling 30 Plus, the latest in our series on leveling. Hello, welcome. We're talking today about leveling 30 and above. And we'll explain why and what that means a little bit more here shortly. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have Asheras.
Hey, long time no talk.
Yeah. So, last time we continued our leveling series, we went through levels 27 to 29, which finished out the epic content. Now we're going to talk about level 30 and above. There's a couple things we need to kind of cover with that. The reason why we're talking about level 30 and above, not just like 30, 31, there's a ton of quests level 31, and there's only quests right now from level 30 to 32 at the time of this recording. And there's really just not a good place to cut it. So we're going to talk about level 30 to 32. And then we'll come back next week and finish that up. It's just going to take us 2 weeks to kind of cover that content, and we're going to end somewhere in the 31 range. So, and they also kind of come in and out depending on what pack you're talking about too. So there's we can kind of be a little bit more freeform with that discussion. The other thing we need to cover with level 30 is the rules change. Sort of. What's important to know about level 30 and above is Reaper XP the base Reaper XP is doubled. So this is why we kind of mentioned this last week, is when you're talking about the level 27, 28, 29 quests, the reason why those aren't being run as much more than anything else these days is you can run, there's more choices at level 30 to 32. The quests are also really enjoyable for the most part. There's a lot of ones that are fairly short and easy to run, and you're getting way more Reaper XP for doing it. So, and you can still, these are all things that you can do with a level 28 party easily.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the legendary term is really just a variation on the epic content. It's really not a different level the way that heroic and epic are different. The only things that are markedly different are the Reaper XP that you mentioned, and then also there is a legendary ward that the mobs have, so that some effects such as Mortal Fear, which is an effect you find on the Thunder Forged weapons at tier 3, no longer works. And I think the only other real difference is that the raid bypass timers that you have, there is a legendary version and then there's an epic and heroic version, and so you have to use different bypass times. Yeah, standard version. So, but yeah, those are the only real differences. Otherwise, the content is pretty much just epic content in every other facet.
Yeah, there's not a huge, if you're talking about heroic to epic, there's a big bump in difficulty when you do that, because you get the epic wards, and a lot of different things kind of happen. And you go from level 18, 19, 20 feeling really, really powerful, and heroics, you go into the epics and run a level 20 quest and get your butt kicked. That's something that can easily happen to someone who's kind of caught unawares. Even people who our Splat group, we hit level 20 and we'd been running stuff on R1 too, and we ran a quest on level 21 on R1 and got our butts kicked. It was great. So there's a definite bump there, but that's not true of 29 to 30. When you're going from epic to legendary, there's not a huge bump in difficulty, and things aren't going to really surprise you like they had before. The quests are a little harder, but nothing out of the ordinary, we should say. So,
yeah.
Anything else we need to say about level 30 and above? Just kind of a blanket statement?
No, I think that's it.
Great. Okay, so let's start with Mark of Death, which is a raid, which is
a great raid.
It is. Pretty quick too once you get it down. It is the legendary, or the epic orchard, legendary orchard raid. So you have to run the quest we talked about last time, the orchard epic quests, to get flagged for it. But otherwise, it's the drop rates are considered low.
That's being generous.
Yeah, right.
Microscopic.
This was the quest that really broke the bank when it came, or the raid that broke the bank when it came to raid bypass timers and running to 20th completion. Because people would just run it on the easiest difficulty, on normal, and just run it 20 times to get an item, because that was considered to be the more optimal way to get your item than running on higher difficulties. And it's not wrong.
No, it's not.
This is why we have the raid runes now, and why there is well, it's not why we have legendary bypass timers. That's kind of related to why there were so many bypass timers, but they got used heavily here, and it certainly put a dent in the market in the available raid bypass timers. So, not that those people tend to be averse to buying new ones anyways, but there you go. But yeah, it's a fun raid.
It is. It's one of those raids I feel like that requires more player skill and just awareness. I liken it a lot to Lord of Blades in that regard. You kind of have to know what the boss is doing. Mm-hmm. There's some different phases to it, and you have to kind of be aware of what you need to do at each phase, because if you're doing the wrong things, you're going to be ineffective, and the party has to have different members focused on different aspects on an ongoing basis, which I really enjoy. But it's also not a raid where you can just tank and spank, so to speak. You've got to be moving and thinking.
You can get away with working together by yourself. In this one, there's not initially a massive need of coordination, but a lot can be going on at the same time. So there are some strategies involved that, if something's stoned, don't go kill it and that kind of stuff. But we're not here to talk about strategy as much. It's a raid, so you're not going to run this in terms of getting XP or leveling or anything like that. You might run it for Reaper XP at one point or another, and that would be fine. I don't really see that a whole lot, but it is a fun raid.
Yeah. I think that it's not run much anymore, mainly because you have to flag for it, and then also B, you mainly are running it, like you said, for items, and the drop rates are so low that you'd have to run it 20 times, and at this point the items really aren't worth that effort. Yeah.
I mean, what do people still use out here? The Epic Litany, maybe.
I mean, but
Ravenloft's got some really nice trinkets, so
yeah, and they put Profane +2 on a lot of different gear now.
Mm-hmm.
Used to be that was the only source for it. So yeah, I'm not really sure there was much of anything in here that I'm.
If you're still using something from Mark of Death, leave a comment. Let us know what you're still using. I'd be curious to know.
Mm-hmm.
But there you go. Got in the chat a shot for the helm. Yeah, maybe. Okay. I think there's other options that people are more going towards, but yeah, the helm is pretty good for a DC caster.
Yeah, the deific focus is a unique effect that you can't find anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yet. Hint, hint. Come on, guys. Let's play this, please. Anyways, where would you like to go next? We've got some options.
Let's go to Amrath. We haven't been there in a while.
All right. So these are quests. The quests you can run, I think, is it 15?
The heroic versions, yes.
Yeah. Or level 30. So again, if you run them on heroic, you can't get the bonus, the first time XP in epics or in legendary. If you do run them in heroics, I don't know that you necessarily need to. I know people do, but I think those people tend to be doing the 1 to 20 thing. If you are going to be going into upper levels and you are going to run this, if you're running a heroic, I would recommend you only run it on elite. Don't run it on Reaper. Save the Reaper XP for when you get to here. Having said that, these are not my favorite Reaper XP quests.
No, they're generally not. They're fun quests.
Than some of the others.
I should say one of them. I really enjoy the one where you have to do the trial, the Archon's trial. Yeah, that one's a fun quest to me. It's got some unique aspects to it, and it's enjoyable. The other two kind of feel a little bit more like just DPS hack and slash slogs for the most part. Although the end fight on the which one is it? The Demon, or the Devil, not Devil's Details, Demon Assault. That end fight there was kind of fun too. And there's an optional way you can go up and fight a Marilith, which is fun.
Oh yeah, everyone likes fighting Mariliths.
Yeah, heck yeah. Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing with these quests that, for me, is when you're talking about running these, looking at getting some mid skull reapers, the mob selection for these is not the best for that. You've got a lot of Abishai, a lot of things that have spell resistance, which can give your CC some problems. So they're not my favorite for the kind of those reasons.
Yeah, I remember when these first came out, I was getting a lot of yellow numbers, and that was annoying because I hadn't been really focused on DR breaking and that sort of thing with demons and devils for a while, and that suddenly started to come back in again, and I realized that my generic DPS weapons weren't quite cutting it.
Yeah, it's that mob selection of demons and devils always comes with spell resistance, good will saves, and stuff like that. So it's a little harder to get things under control, and if things are under control, the Abishai in particular are blowing you up. Although I think they toned them down a little bit, not too long ago. But it's still it's one of these are some of those quests that if you don't have the crowd control, consider toning the skull level down a little bit. That's kind of really what I'm getting at.
Yeah, they're definitely slightly. We talked about how there's not a huge jump in difficulty from 29 to 30. There is a little bit just because of this content. We're starting to get into what you would classify as newer content, post level 30. So they did ratchet up the difficulty a little bit. And you feel us more in heroics, I think, than you do here. But even so, like you said, Abishai just by themselves can be problematic if you don't have good crowd control.
And there's lots of them.
Yeah.
They come in packs. So bring the energy, resistance, and absorption and all that stuff. The Filer of the Just is the raid that comes with this, which was... I like the raid. It has always had lag issues and performance issues, which is really unfortunate. I think they'd be better off taking the blade. I think the blades are part of the problem, but it's kind of a theory, not almost conspiracy level theory. So there's not anything that I can really point at specifically, but the performance in this raid is sketch at best. The other thing that's really important to know is if you're looking at ratcheting this up into Reaper and stuff like that, is a lot of stuff in here is orange and red named. You're not going to run into champions, thank goodness. But this one really, I've noticed the difficulty really ramps up when you go into Reaper.
Yeah.
You don't see people running this on Reaper very much. It is probably out of all of the raids that you can, I think this one, the difficulty between Elite and R1 is probably the biggest jump.
Yeah, I think I've noticed that too. I mean, and this was one that when it came out had some very strict time limits and fail mechanics.
Does.
And it still does. They toned it down, which was helpful, but
Did they?
yeah.
I missed that.
Oh, it's a while back. I mean, it's been a long time, but
no, what they did, they changed the mob sizes.
Oh, that's right. They changed.
But they also increased the hit points and the damage that they do. So it kind of in theory, it balanced out.
Yeah.
The other problem is the end fight mechanic doesn't work correctly, so that makes it harder.
Yeah, I think the end fight was always the kind of what I felt was besides the lag was always the big miss with this raid in terms of what kept it from being what could have been a really great raid.
The loot was decent, but
yes,
it's this is before raid runes came out, so you can just run it for 20th completions. So people tend to run on easier difficulties, with good reason, because if you're running this on Reaper and you get a lag spike, you're done.
Yeah, and you're probably going to get a lag spike, unfortunately.
Yep. All right, where should we go next?
Well, let's talk about the other, or the next classic module that came out.
Temple of Elemental Evil?
Yeah.
All right. Probably not going to be on your fast leveling
no,
XP.
not at
all. But fantastic quest, I think. I really enjoy the quest.
Oh, I do too. Yeah, I like it a lot. And you're right. You can spend. This is another one of those ones where you can spend hours in here.
Mm-hmm.
They really took a lot of time and put a lot of detail into it. It's a lot more hack and slash, I think, than Haunted Halls is in terms of not having as many traps, and to the point where it can get a little tedious in that regard. If there's any knock on it, I think it might be mob density.
I'll knock it other ways. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I like it overall, and I mean, I for a long time I liked the loot too. It was a great loot farm because there was some really fun items in here, as well as some neat, some crafted items that could really help your build as well.
All right, I'm gonna knock it now.
Go ahead and knock it.
The mushroom drop rate for what you need, ugh, atrocious. It's terrible. You gotta run this thing like 50 times to get maybe half the mushrooms you need, unless you're doing it in a party where you're like giving all of one kind of mushroom to one person and all of the other kind to another person. So mushroom drop rate is terrible. That's where I'm gonna knock it. But the quests themselves is a lot of fun. I like the end fight. It's very challenging. Particularly in the part 2 end fight is very challenging. So. Anything else you want to say about it?
I don't think so. I think I was the only thing I was disappointed about when it came out is that they didn't really do much with the village of Hamlet and some of that sort of thing.
Sure.
I thought they could have done even more with it than they did. But what they did in terms of just having the temple, it was great. So.
Yeah, in terms of adaptation and stuff, it's a really nice dungeon. It's narrated by Will Wheaton, or DM'd by Will Wheaton, if you like that guy.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of fun stuff in there. Part 2 can, particularly if you're doing all 4 parts, which if you do, you can get a really nice helm out of the whole thing. But even if you know what you're doing, it can take you a while just to find the dang things. But it's a very hack and slashy kind of version, I think, like you mentioned. It kind of is a little bit of a turnoff. Let's talk about Thunderholm, Fire on Thunder Peak, and Temple of Deathworm, which are again 2 raids. So probably not on your leveling XP train.
No.
But these are doable on Reaper. Without they're not a huge jump or anything like that.
No. And the adventure area is definitely on your leveling XP train, so you'll probably end up being flagged for both of them because the flagging
easy flagging mechanic.
Very easy. Yeah, you just basically have to run through the adventure area and kill one red name boss that is an automatic spawn in those locations. So easy to get flagged. And I always liked Fire on Thunder Peak. It's such a fun raid in my opinion. You know, you're basically fighting 2 red dragons. It's kind of an arena raid, so there's not a lot to it besides just the coordination of managing 2 dragons that you want to keep separated.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say against Fire on Thunder Peak is the fireball mechanic never worked correctly, and they took it out.
Yeah,
and I think that's a detraction from raid. It's still a decent raid, but this is one of those funny raids where I have seen a number of groups that should be able to handle this no problem and go in a difficulty that they should totally be able to handle, and then the leadership and lack of coordination just runs it into the ground right away, and you never get very far. It seems a lot simpler than it is, but use some strategy, you'll get a lot better off. Temple of the Deathworm is a lot... I really enjoy it. It has a lot of strategy involved. There's you're immediately offered a very interesting choice of, do you go in one of 6 rooms one at a time, hoping to get a 1 in 6 chance every time, or do you kind of try to time it out and get increase your chances and that kind of stuff? You have to split the party up. So there's a lot of really fun strategy, which I of course really like to deal with.
Yep. I agree. This is another raid where lag is probably the biggest weakness of the raid.
Same with Fire
you
and
know,
Thunderpeak to a certain extent, but it's less common there.
Mm-hmm.
Temple of Deathworm has a lot more shadows, which, as we've discussed on the show before, tend to be less than conducive to performance.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the end fight, as long as you can avoid lag, it's generally going to be a fun experience. And like you said, the splitting of the party and trying to find the phylactery, and then also just navigating the rooms, whether you're doing the jump room or you're doing the anti-gravity room. I mean, there's a lot of different ways through that.
I love the gravity room. Nobody likes the gravity room, and I love it.
I know. I like it too. And to me, it's a lot safer. Red light, green light, again with lag, can be a nightmare. Otherwise, it's a very fun way to go. But
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fun raids. Not big on your leveling experience, but at this point, you probably don't need a lot of leveling experience. We're just kind of filling out the quest here, but yeah.
Yeah, also very grindy. Going back to what you said about Temple of Elemental Evil, the need for the the Phlogistons.
Yeah. Well, getting to tier 2 is not bad at all.
No.
Tier 3 is ridiculous. I think I made one tier 3 ever.
I made 2 Mortal Fear items, and I think I have one of the one that regenerates action boosts. I think it is. Which one is that? Draconic Invigoration or something?
I never run out of action boost though, so I have to work hard to use all my action boosts before a shrine comes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can do it in some of the in Baba. If I want to keep boosting to get the prowess set bonus, then I can run out.
Sure.
So. Mm-hmm.
Things tend to die fast enough that I don't think about boosting though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good raids. Well, I saw it on the raid scale. The performance issue is a bit of a problem, which is unfortunate because otherwise they're really good raids. Let's see. Mask of Deception. I still haven't run this one.
And you probably won't. This is one of those few quests that does not give Reaper XP, if I'm not mistaken.
It does not. They turned it off. The reason for that is because stuff doesn't spawn correctly, so Reapers don't spawn.
Yeah.
I should say correctly. Things spawn differently, so Reapers don't spawn. So they turned off the Reaper version because it was laughably easy on Reaper because there were no Reapers.
Mm-hmm.
Oops.
Yep. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there is a way as well to kind of complete this without killing anything or killing very little. That wouldn't
give me Reaper XP, but yeah, it's
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh well.
This was a one-off. It's my understanding that they might have been looking at going further into the whole Mask of the Dragon and maybe even possibly. I think there was a Tiamat storyline that Wizards of the Coast was doing back when this came out, and I think it ended up getting. I think it was the intro to something that never actually happened. So it's kind of a standalone.
Into the dragon cultists or whatever, because they crop up a little in a few places.
Yeah, they do.
Including I think. Is it the same cult as Temple of the Deathworm? The people
I don't know. I think it is, yeah.
It might be. The same. A little bit of time there. Well, let's talk about the chain that you probably will run. The Multitude of Menace chain, which is Grim and Barrett, which is a very popular... actually, a lot of these are pretty popular in terms of running them on high skulls. Grim and Barrett, Multitude of Menace, Subversion, and Tavern Brawl. Tavern Brawl being the one that I don't see run on high skulls a lot. But Grim and Barrett is a very popular one, even for rerunning. Multitude of Menace and Subversion, I think, are also pretty popular. My only problem with this is I got to remember which one's which. Grim and Barrett's the one in the harbor, and then Subversion and Multitude of Menace are the ones that I always get confused. One's in House Cannith, and one's in the 12.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I would say that both of them are fairly commonly run, and there's some tactics that kind of make them easier to run, even on high skulls. So, but even the mob selection is a little less bad from the Amrath chain, the Archon's Trial chain. But there are still a lot of Abishai that you got to watch out for that can give you a pretty good pounding if you're not careful.
Yeah, Grim and Barrett have those. Yeah, all these really have those. Yeah. The Tavern Brawl one is got a ton of them, but that's kind of an interesting one. Reusing the portable hole that way.
Yeah,
it's a very small.
It's a
very small quest, very small area.
It's short, so you get a little bit less Reaper XP. But
yeah,
you can. I mean, I think we did it on R5 or R4 with no real healer in like 7 minutes yesterday. So, all of these are pretty quick. You can run. They're not long quests. As long as you can keep moving, you can get bogged down a bit with the Abishai and stuff like we mentioned. But if you've got the crowd control to handle it, and what you can wrap up the skulls on these ones, and they're not terribly difficult to do that with. This is probably the money spot out of the level 30 quests in terms of leveling and getting Reaper XP and stuff like that.
Yeah, you see a lot of runs of it, especially Grim and Barrett, but also I think Subversion is the one that's in the 12. I see that one a lot too.
Yeah, and Multitude Menace too. Although I don't particularly enjoy the tactic of having everyone pull out a plinker. I think if you can get to that point of the quest, the end fight of the quest, you can go in and handle the actual end fight, which we did yesterday with no problem. So,
okay.
I mean, I guess if you want 10 skulls, sure, maybe. But again, I think if you can get to that point, you can probably handle the end fight, no problem. So.
Yeah, I think, when you see a lot of the people on the forum saying, oh, R10 is easy, a lot of times the links
cheesy
they
tactics.
put up well, a lot of times the links they put up are Grim and Barrett and, are these quests. So these ones definitely are ones you can ramp up the difficulty on and get some great XP out of. So.
All right, we got a little bit of time left. We'll start talking about, we've covered all the quests level 30. Let's jump into a little bit of the quests level 31, 32. We'll kind of intertwine these a little bit, and you'll kind of see why. We'll start by talking about Black and Blue and Newcomers, and also Riding the Storm Out, which is level 32. Black and Blue and Newcomers are the two quests that came along with Riding the Storm Out. However, you don't actually need to run the quests to run the raid.
Which I had forgotten about last time we ran Riding the Storm Out.
Yeah, but you do have to be level 27 to run Riding the Storm Out. It has a very high level gate, comparatively. Probably because the electricity mechanic is challenging.
Punishing?
Yeah, that's probably a better word for it.
These quests would be known as the Pre-Ravenloft quests that quickly got forgot about.
Yeah, that's kind of often the case. Black and Blue and Newcomers, though, I like the quest, but they're long.
They're a slog. I mean, they were, Black and Blue especially has some unique mechanics in terms of, there's some lightning traps and, these areas you have to jump through, and it's got some interesting stuff, but there's a lot of mobs. The mobs have a lot of HP. They do a lot of damage. It's a slog.
They're long. That's really the thing about them, right?
Yeah.
You talk about like Grim and Barrett. You could probably finish all 4 of the Multitude Menace chain in the time it would take you to get through both of these. Easy. I
agree with that.
They're very long quests.
Yeah, I mean, and the XP just doesn't quite scale for it. It'd be one thing if they were giving out massive amounts of XP, but they're really not. So as a result, you're kind of running them, and again, from a loot standpoint, there's just really not a lot in here.
There was. I mean,
yeah, there was. Not now, but it's just tough. It's tough when you're the small release before an expansion. No matter what that content is, because whatever comes out next is gonna be better. But
Riding the Storm Out is I like 90% of the raid. I think the electricity lightning bolt mechanic is a little too punishing and too big of a barrier for new people for the raid. We have taken new people in there numerous times, and you just know that they're gonna spend a significant portion of the raid as a soulstone.
Yeah.
It takes a while to get the mechanic down. I don't necessarily mind the mechanic. I think it does too much damage and ramps up too fast. I think it needs to ramp up. There needs to be less lightning, significantly less lightning, or it needs to be significantly more of a scale.
Mm-hmm.
Like it needs to do half the damage, and the stack needs to go up twice as much, or something like that.
Yeah. Or the other thing I always thought is, does there need to be so many puzzles that need to be done?
Yeah.
You could also, if you maybe cut out a third of those or something. I don't know. I mean, I like everything that they do in this raid to some degree. I mean, I like the puzzles. I like a lot of the aspects of it. I like the final fight and some of the tells you have to get. And I mean, it has some.
The dragon's fun.
Yeah, the dragon. I agree, and I think it's got
but
that aspect of
every single mob need to cast lightning.
No, when it's that one dimensional and that excessive on one particular thing, that's not as much fun. But I like that if you make mistakes, you're going to die to some degree, because I think that there should be some consequences to making poor choices in raids or to not paying attention. But this one, it just kind of goes a little bit too long, or it's a little bit too much. But overall, I think if they had toned that down, it would have been a lot more popular.
But you're not going to run it for leveling either, so.
No, you're not. At this point, you're not going to run it for leveling. You're probably not going to run it for loot. And it came out, 2 or 3 months after Reaper got released and Racial Reincarnation. So it just,
same time as Racial Reincarnation, which is also part of the problem. And the loot was never really that popular.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the problem.
So.
Well, let's talk about, we'll end this week's discussion. Let's talk about Creeping Death, to Curse the Sky, and Codex in the Shroud.
Okay. Fun topic.
Curse the Sky is more Abishai. Again, it's that same kind of. This is actually the Archon's trial leads into the storyline of Multitude Menace, which leads into this storyline of Legendary Shroud. You can run Creeping Death and Curse the Sky on Heroic as well. Same as Black and Blue newcomers, you can too.
Which I like, by the way. I like that this was the first time we kind of saw a multi-update storyline in a while. It's been a while, and I liked that that there was an ongoing storyline that we were kind of developing there, rather than kind of going over here, then we're over there, then there's a classic module, and there wasn't a lot of tie-ins to some of this stuff. And I liked Curse the Sky. I thought it was a lot of, I don't know, just visually it was fun, and the idea that we were kind of storming this House Deneath outpost and ridding it of these devils that had infested it.
Yeah, and it's not of the two. I think it's definitely the easier. It does have Abishai again.
Yeah, it does.
Which we've talked about, I think, enough to get an idea of what to expect from them. But if you can handle the Abishai and stuff, this is it's a little bit longer, but it's not too long.
No, this is not a long quest. Now, transitioning over to Creeping Death, the name is appropriate because you feel like it's creeping.
Everyone's favorite Kobold and Ooze combination. It's really the Oozes that people don't like.
Yeah, I agree.
You have to switch weapons to protect your weapons and use the right thing against the Oozes, and then you got all these Kobolds, particularly the Shamans,
who are doing the caster hop back thing.
It can be an aggravating mob. The mobs are not necessarily really challenging, but the combination is kind of aggravating. I think more than anything else.
Especially for a melee, because it's really hard to get things to group up so you can use any AoE attacks that you've got.
Or you're using suboptimal weapons because it's oozes, and more oozes. And the casters are going, they're arcane oozes, so the casters have limited options against them.
And oozes are, a lot of melee crowd control does not work on oozes.
A lot of crowd control, period, doesn't work on oozes.
Yeah, so it's a little bit, that makes it a little bit less fun too. And you mix in the old barrier thing too. There's a bunch of barriers you have, and doors that don't unlock.
Well, bother me too much. But yeah, not a popular quest. I think, to put it mildly. And the end fight can get into a little train wreck. So, Curse the Sky is pretty good for Reaper XP. Creeping Death, I think a lot of people are going to opt for a lower difficulty, perhaps even running on Heroic just to flag the raid.
Yeah.
Speaking of the raid, Codex in the Shroud, if you get flagged, this is a fantastic XP mine. So.
Oh my gosh, yeah. This is one of the few raids you'll run for XP.
Yes. It's well worth getting flight and repeat when you're doing epic past lives and leveling back up and whatnot. The XP out here is fantastic. I personally don't particularly like running on higher than legendary hard, mostly because I find that what happens with the raid becomes a lot less fun for me. When I think I've talked about it on the show enough, I'm not going to get too much into the raid itself. But even on hard, I mean, you're getting a ton of XP. I think the base XP, just by stepping in, it's going to tell you you're going to get like 200,000 XP on a repeat run. It's crazy.
Yeah, and every time you click on a portal, you're getting more XP again too. So you get 4 hits of XP.
There's another 100,000 XP in optionals.
Oh yeah. Well, and this loot, they set it at ML26, so it fits great in there, because it's 3 levels before Ravenloft loot, or 2 levels before a lot of the ML28 legendary loot. So you can use this stuff, and there's a lot of endgame optimal builds that are still using Shroud gear for the HP set bonuses, for the Ender set. I mean, so from a loot standpoint, spell point. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that are still good in here. I know I'm wearing.
I think you hit the mute button there. Uh-oh, we might have lost him there. Oh, yeah, you're back. No, he's not. All right, so, yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff with the Shroud stuff there. Again, great loot. You can run it on Elite if you got the party for it, and you have experience with it. That's definitely you can run it on Elite and have some skulls thrown in there with Codex and the Shroud, but it's probably going to slow you down a lot more. At least double your time to complete it is my general experience.
I would agree with that. And part 2 is just no fun on higher difficulties.
Yeah, 1 and 2
kind of
get bogged down, just in general. So.
Or it's the devil. I'm sorry, the devil's the one that drives me crazy.
No, devil, fire, they're all bad. Part 2 is the hardest part in the whole thing, which is part of the reason why I don't like the raid. Surprisingly, I don't like Legendary Shroud anywhere near as much as I did Heroic Shroud. Oh well. But yeah, in terms of leveling, great. It's fantastic. Jumping in all the hard runs you can find. So.
And people still run. This is one of the few raids that people are still running on a regular basis, besides the Ravenloft ones. So.
All right, so that'll wrap us up for this week. We'll finish leveling 30 plus next week. So thanks for listening. I'd like to thank Asheras for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again.
If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website, DDOCast.com, where you can support us on Patreon. You can also find show notes, past shows, and more on our website. You can also find us on social media and follow us for latest cast updates. I'm at DDOCast on Twitter. If you'd like to join the discussion, you can leave a comment or you can email us at ddocast@gmail.com. So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.